For the last 28 years, pretty much, I have been training myself and training other people in all kinds of walks of life in how to have helpful conversations with other beings. So whether that's social workers, youth workers, probation officers, doctors, all kinds of people mainly within social care, people in the addictive fields, all kinds of people who actually have a very strong, big heart, and what they really want to do is make a difference with other beings. And so they get jobs within their particular professions and their fields, and they get into situations where they're having interactions with others, and they're hoping that in those interactions something good happens, that the person who they're talking to is able to find that they're not the sum total of their history, of their past, of everything that's gone on before, that they can see through the dialogue, through the relationship with somebody else, that actually something else is possible. A little opening happens, and then they're able to take that into their lives and make changes. So that's something that's really, really important to me, is having those conversations. And a lot of that happens through coaching skills, which is something that I train in. So when I came across the Outcome Star, it was a bit of a marriage made in heaven, really, because there is the aspect of having these conversations with people, which can be incredibly helpful. We can really help each other in our conversations, as we all know, because I think Triratna is very, very good at chatting. We are very, very good, and a lot of us have been really, really helped with all our chatting to each other. We are able to develop really deep sense of connection and relationship with each other, and that to me is one of the most moving aspects of being in the order, is this ability that we have to connect and know each other through taking the time to get to know all aspects of our lives and each other. So that's a very, very fantastic foundation that we have. My feeling is also that we could use those conversations in a bit more of a focused way that will actually have a greater impact, is my sense and my hope, and why I became involved in doing this particular project. So there are the conversations that we have, and then in a way what the Outcome Star, and beginning to work with people in training the Outcome Star in lots of different fields, what I found is that the star, or in this case the Lotus, is able to kind of catch the conversation. So the conversation is the most important thing about this, not the piece of paper. It's actually what's happening in that dialogue with you, with somebody. But what the star or the Lotus does is it provides a way of kind of catching and sorting that, so that then what gets revealed in those conversations, it's easier then to see what the next step might be for the person. That gets revealed, and at its most helpful, it's when somebody sees it for themselves that is the most helpful thing. So what we're very clear about is that those two things, having a way to capture those conversations and having a way to have the conversations, when those two things come together, that creates a really potent force for change and for supporting people in moving from where they are a little step further to where they'd like to be. So I've kind of called it having intentional conversations about practice, because as I said, we are really good at going for walks with each other and having conversations about all kinds of things which include practice in it, but with these conversations we're kind of focusing in a deeper way. We're saying this is an intentional conversation that's going to support us in our practice, and as a result of this conversation that we have, the speaker in the conversation will see something new which relates to where they are. And the seeing of that new thing will enable them quite naturally to have an opening for what's next for them. That's the purpose of the conversation, is that the speaker gets to see something just by bringing awareness to this area. They get to see something which allows them this sense of possibility and next step. So what are the elements that are necessary for an intentional conversation about practice using the outcome star? Well, the first one, I've called it create a container. So that means basically that you're clear that this is what you're doing. You know, we're clear that we've got this container, and we're clear what the time frame is that we're going to do this conversation in. So in setting up this conversation, we're going to invite you initially to each give each other half an hour. So we know that for the next half an hour or the next hour or however long you decide, you actually say we are going to have this conversation. It's going to be half an hour. You create that container. So you have a clarity of that. And it's not so important within this context, but within other contexts, you're always trying to find an understanding of what is it that this person wants the most out of this conversation. What is it that's most important to them? Within the order, we've got a kind of clarity of shared values of what we want the most is to be liberated from suffering. So we kind of got that as our background, what we want the most to happen as a result of these conversations. But in other contexts, you just might want to clarify what it is that person really does want as a result of having the conversation. So that's the first step, just create the container. And it's important, in order to have a good conversation, that it is a little bit formal. That there is a sense of, we're going to pay attention for this amount of time on this issue, and then we'll move on. So then you have this engaged conversation. And an engaged conversation needs a speaker and a listener. Okay? And each of those have particular roles. So the role of the speaker is to be able to reflect on where they are. In any of these 9 areas, the question is, where are you? Where do you feel you are in terms of your meditation? Where do you feel you are in terms of relationships and communication? Where do you feel you are? The role of the speaker is just to reflect on that and just to speak as freely as they can about that topic. They'll just say whatever's there for them and they speak. So there's a speaker, then there's a listener. And the job of the listener is to listen. Now, this might seem kind of really obvious, but it's actually, a bit like meditation. It's actually really it's quite demanding to truly listen to another. Because if we tell the truth about it, if we look, most of the time, even when we're sitting in front of someone, who we're actually listening to is our own internal chatter about what they're saying. Oh, I agree with that. Oh, that's a bit like me. No, I could do that. Well, why didn't they do it this way? There's this whole internal chatter that can be happening as we're listening to someone. And that is really listening to ourselves. It's not actually listening to another. So if we really commit ourselves to listening to another, what we're doing is we're committing ourselves to keeping on putting our own agenda, our own thoughts, our own opinions, our own sense of what we think should be happening for them in their practice to one side. And it will come back, and we just keep putting it to one side and keep putting it to one side to create space for that person to hear themselves without any of our internal chatter sort of getting in the way. So we're not there to advise, we're not there to fix, we're not there to solve, to give them all the benefit of our infinite wisdom. We're there to be a container and listen to whatever it is they want to say. If there seems like some sort of response is needed, then we can reflect back what we've heard. So first listen. Second, if you need to do something, just reflect back, not from your point of view, but what you've heard that person saying, you can reflect back. And then thirdly, if more is needed, then ask a question. But not a question that is for you to know the answer that you want, but is a question that's somehow going to help them to be in the inquiry, help them to stay with what it is that they are thinking about, that will allow this potential for an opening in their awareness or understanding of this particular area. So engage in a conversation, listen, reflect back, possibly ask a question. Okay? And then see if together you can place, as a result of the conversation, you can place that person on where they are on this particular journey of change. Are they in the seeking phase? Are they in the finding phase? Are they engaging and revealing phase? What phase are they? And that just takes a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of looking together at what it might be, where they are. And the reason that we want to know where you are is that if you want to see where you want to go, then the first step is just to know where you are. So then what we do is we record whatever's helpful, okay, so that we can come back to it in 6 months' time or a year's time and just see how it's going, what's changed, what's shifted. So what you'll need for, we're gonna give you, after the lunch, after the tea break, we're going to give you an hour. What you'll need is a partner, so preferably someone that knows you fairly well. So you'll need a partner to do this with. You'll need one of these, and we've got 4 people in 4 distinct areas who give you one of these, which is the descriptors that outline for each outcome area, both what we're exactly meaning by the outcome area, and then what that area looks like at each different stage. So you'll need a partner, one of these, we've got 200 of these, so people may need to share. So you only really need one between 2, but there's probably enough for a lot of people to have one each, but people just work that out. So you then have an hour, and we recommend just half an hour each, and that we're asking you to choose in line with the theme of this order gathering, that you either choose insight practice, faith, confidence and devotion, or altruism and contribution. So we're asking you to choose one of these choose to start with one of these 3 in your half an hour. You may have time to do 2 of them. You may even have time to do 3. It just depends on you, really, and the conversation. So you're going to have choose one of those, and then just spend some time. First of all, before you actually get into this, just spend some general time exploring it, first of all, before you start looking at the descriptors. Okay. Once you feel you've explored it, you've said everything you need to say about it, then you go and have a look at the descriptors, and then that will help you to plot where you are. So I hope you really enjoy it. Give it a go. It's fine not to like it if you don't like it. It's just an offering that will hopefully support practice.